Hey folks, and welcome to another Sasoi spikeboarding tutorial and demonstration video. And as you can see, the sport is right out your door. So stand-up spike is core out your door. Spikeboarding is the sport of balanced strength, and we find ourselves on 29th Avenue, traveling toward the downtown area of Denver, headed towards Cherry Creek path, and we're going to make our way towards the Washington Park area and visit some friends over at Denver University today. Maybe run into a couple cross-country skiers over there if we're lucky, and maybe some hockey players as well. That could be cool, but that's what we're out to do. What you're watching, folks, is a simplified form of cross-country skiing. So we're on pavement, as you can see right there on 29th Avenue, and when you have pavement, you can take a small carbide spike tip and spike into the pavement, and you can propel yourself forward. That would be nothing different than what has been done for well over several decades with cross-country skiers at a World Cup level, at an Olympic level, and also locally, folks, at a college level, at a D1 cross-country skiing level out of Denver University. Colorado University at Boulder has a great ski team, and these athletes roller ski 70% of the time, and when they do, they're going to have two shafts in their hands, and each one is going to have carbide spike tip on it, and that's how they engage the pavement. But today, we're actually going to zip on down to Cherry Creek path so we can cross town comfortably outside of traffic, and also show you how dedicated switch kicking is the equivalent of skate or diagonal stride in cross-country skiing. You should be able to simply skate long distances, because without your upper body engagement, because spikeboarding is half kicking and half upper body propulsion, and that's why it is skiing. So if we woke up from the dead, millions of people who had lived for thousands of years, and we asked them and we showed them, what is this athlete doing? And they saw someone spikeboarding, they would say, well, that person is skiing. And why would they say that? Well, because it would have been in their experience their entire lives to have seen people gliding across the Earth's surface and propelling themselves by use of upper and lower body simultaneously as skiing. And so skiing, in effect, if you break it down very simply, is the use of the upper body and the lower body together to glide across the Earth's surface. And of course, it all began with skiing on snow, because there was no pavement and there were no wheels. And as soon as there was pavement and wheels, then that moved on to roller skiing, and now we ski. And skiing is skiing, folks. So those of you who think that roller skiing isn't skiing, well, then just go ahead and remove that portion of 70% of the cross training that World Cup skiers do, and you will quickly realize that those skiers will no longer be performing their skiing as well. And of course, if you use the definition of gliding across the Earth's surface using your upper and lower body, then roller skiing is very much skiing. Here we're coming down 29th Avenue. You're getting a good look at cadence braking, which is a little different than sliding. Sliding, of course, would be aggressive and radical. Wonderful, very cool development in the last 14, 15 years, possibly a little longer in the skateboard world. And sliding is very similar to alpine skiing. So you're traveling down a fall line of a hill or a mountain, and then you're going to put the board into a frictional situation where you're going to be reducing speed. Same as you would take a steel edge and take it into a nice hard dig into the snow so that you could turn or that you could reduce speed. Sliding's the same thing, and of course that's a radical situation. And in cross-country skiing, even on snow, you're not going to be doing that at elevated speeds of 50, 60, 70 miles an hour because it is radical, and your focus is on endurance, not radical and acrobat. So spikeboarding is the same thing. We don't do a lot of sliding. We don't do any sliding. We worry about working on our technique and working on our human propulsion, getting from A to B. Very similar to cross-country skiing. So if you look cross-country skiing, they're not doing Lindsey Vonn hills. They're not bombing 89, 90 miles an hour. That's the world of downhill skiers. So cross-country skiers choose a different terrain. And by the way, the terrain of the Sloan's Lake area is very comparable to cross-country skiing circuits. It's got a nice high, low side that doesn't pitch you very much over 28 miles an hour at a maximum. So here we are in the bike lane, behaving just like a bicycle, and there's the cadence brake. We're keeping the board straight between the lines and reducing our speed slowly, checking our braking distances and bringing the board to a halt, and then gently switch drifting the board to increase our level of switch stance skill set. You're looking at an athlete with 8 years of spikeboarding in them, so you're seeing expert spikeboarding, commuting in traffic as well. You're watching a stand-up spike stroke, which is even on both sides. It's always on the front side when it's two-handed. That is the stand-up spike stroke. The stand-up spike stroke is very similar to the double pole stroke of skiing, slightly modified with hips turned in at 45 degrees. And whether it is one-armed or two-armed, stand-up is very nice, and it engages the core constantly. Notice how those hips are being pushed forward just a little bit, and that's very similar to cross-country double pole skiing, and the cadence always remains the same. We become a little more cadence when we take that skateboard spike and put it in that position you see now. That's a safety 1 position. If we had a pace line behind us with 5, 10, 12 people, or even one person, it's courtesy when you slide in to stopping. Just keep in mind your carbide and where it is. So whenever there's people, think of your carbide. Carbide spike, where are the people? Where is my spike? It's important to know. So when you come to a stop, you got people behind you, jump in that safety 1 position, and there you saw it. So as you can see, there's a great deal of casualness to the sport of spikeboarding. Very, very casual. There are no cross tips, and of course spikeboarding is as much skateboarding as it is skiing. When it comes to using the lower body, we can see there is a tremendous amount of carving. We learn to carve switch on both sides and produce the ambipedal skill set. So we execute on both sides. It's not radical. So it's not, you're not looking for sliding. You're not looking for crazy amounts of speed. You're behaving very similar to a road cyclist. And you're not wanting to risk at all falling down. And of course you're seeing some of these drill maneuvers that you can do when you stop, and they involve a great deal of switching, which is going to make you much more proficient when you're executing at speed. If you can do things standing still, you're going to be able to do them rolling. We're born with a dominant side neurologically, and the idea is to activate both sides of your neurology constantly, so that then the body begins to get used to it and you can begin to fire on both sides. We're definitely looking for researchers who want to do longitudinal studies and also cross-training studies, especially for soccer, because we believe for certain that Cross training, we're trying to let this car through, give them a good sign that we're going to hold our line, that they're comfortable passing us. We'll get back talking about soccer in a second. Let's take a look at this concrete. Okay, guys, as soon as you get to concrete, it's over for your spike. You cannot engage. So now we've entered the world of switch kicking. We're going to jump on a sidewalk and do a little swivel turn down around this building. Here comes a cyclist. As you can see, we're behaving exactly like the cyclist. No erratic moves, no sudden changes, and in effect we are being filmed from a bicycle, so we're holding the same line as a bike. Notice also that the skateboard spike, it is called a skateboard spike, guys. That's the name of that hand tool that you see. It lives in the ski pole family, as well as the baseball bat, golf club, tennis racket family. It's got a grip, it's got a sticky grip, so it lives in both the ski pole family as well as the hand tool family of assorted field sport tools, like a lacrosse stick, like a hockey stick, like a baseball bat. Without that upper handle on that skateboard spike, you would not be able to stand up spike with high performance. And of course, the silicone grip is also very important, and without it, you would have very poor transmission of power through your shaft. And here you're seeing us navigate straight onto the Cherry Creek path, and you're seeing some pretty advanced one-legged turning and rail riding there for skating. And here is when we will begin to really demonstrate on this path pure skating. We'll do a little bit of spike boarding, and you'll see we're going to do some grass spike boarding. When I say grass, it could be dirt as well, but when nearby to your concrete, you actually have an ability to engage dirt or grass, you are going to use it. And here comes a little commuter in the morning, headed to where they want to go. We wave them on through, and they come on by. And all these public works are so impressive, and they're so fantastic here in Denver, by the way. We really enjoy how Denver has laid itself out with all of its public work infrastructure for alternative transportation. We salute all those who made big efforts to socially design that and make that possible with some forethought. Design is the first signal of human intention, and if your intention was to keep people healthy and happy, then helping them connect with transport sports is fantastic, Denver. So keep up the good work. All transport sports, we need them. And of course, switch kicking and skateboard, or spike boarding, cycling, inline skating, these are all transport sports. There you go, guys. Here we have a little bit of spike boarding right there on the Cherry Creek bike trail by engaging our spike into the dirt or the grass, what have you. So it's lovely to go under these bridges and be by Cherry Creek. It's so nice, and here we have a little more engagement. We're not going to get a whole heck of a lot of it, but we're going to get enough to show you that you can engage the upper body. And of course, when you engage the upper body, you're going to have some respite, and that's really nice. So when we switch, as you can see there, we have to go straight back to switch kicking, and if we can, we come straight back into the Cubi cross. The Cubi cross, of course, is the engagement of the upper body with the lower body for the first time on a board using a carbide shaft. And here we are back to switch kicking. And of course, all of you who cross-country ski know that the development of the lower body and the upper body independently is a great way to strengthen condition and develop your base and your form for cross-country skiing. And here's no different. So really good cross-country skiers, a well-developed cross-country skier should be able to ski with no poles for 30 kilometers, and also should be able to ski with no leg propulsion for 30 kilometers. And of course, if you combine those two levels of fitness, you're going to be a very well-developed skier. The same would be said for swimming. So this particular athlete swam at natatoriums and was lucky enough and fortunate enough to be in areas that provided good natatorium swim programs. There's a little inside Kubi cross, so that is the third stroke to be born in spikeboarding, when you kick and spike simultaneously on the same side. But swimmers, of course, also grab a kickboard and they develop all 4 kicks, whether it's backstroke, breaststroke, butterfly, or a flutter kick, with a kickboard. And then they also take pull buoys and they put them between their legs and isolate their upper body away from their lower body. They'll maintain their legs static and do pulling, and they'll put pull paddles on as well and only engage the upper body. So the notion that you would develop the upper body and the lower body independently occurs in 2 existing sports that we know of: cross-country skiing and, of course, swimming. And spikeboarding is no different. And the sport of switch kicking exists very much in the world. If you wanted to find it, you would discover maybe 10 to 20 people who are, they're going kind of fast, but that would be in the world of longboard skateboard races, which is very undeveloped field with not too many people worldwide. Certainly it's not developed in any high schools or middle schools. There's no real industry consciousness of teaching switch kick, as you see here. So we're kicking on the ones, and at the same time we're carrying the spike neutrally. But if you wanted to find switch kicking and you wanted to participate in switch kick races, it's out there. Certainly that would be like, for us, it would be as if you were cross-country ski racing and not using your upper body. So if you find that appealing, hey, more power to you. But switch kicking is a half a sport. It's not fully developed. You might say, well, how about speed skating? Well, you speed skate, you're on inline skates, you're on speed skates, and that's a fully developed sport. Yeah, that's a fully developed sport, because it would make no logical sense whatsoever to engage the upper body, because you're traveling at such a high rate of speed. Speed skating is so deliriously fast that you have an inability to engage the upper body. You're just going way, way, way too fast, and the cadence of the arms can't even keep up with speed skating. So you're also thrusting with your upper body incredibly effectively. So when you get into switch kicking skateboards long distances, the speed is not that fast whatsoever at all, and you have a tremendous ability to engage with the upper body just like a skier. So switch kicking is equivalent to diagonal stride or skate skiing with no poles. So if you're up for it, go for it. If not, you might want to think of learning spikeboarding and engaging the upper body. But what you've been watching here is the athlete carrying the skateboard spike in a neutral position. What I mean by neutral is, notice how he's carrying it on the carbon fiber right in the middle of the shaft, where it's nearly weightless. So if you've ever moved a refrigerator or a big box on a dolly, if you push it too far forward, it's a big load. If you push it too far backward, it's also a big load. If you balance it right in its middle, it's no load at all. So when the spike isn't being used, you don't need to hold it on its silicone grip. And believe it or not, over time, ounces, grams, they all matter. And there we're going to squeeze off a little bit of Kubi cross while we can to demonstrate that. And also, you were watching the skateboard spike getting tossed back and forth at the neutral axis right there in the middle. And there's various ways to get the spike over, but we want to carry it. There's a little drift, a little switch from the silicone down to the middle neutral part, and also from the neutral part back to the silicone. Got to be careful when you're engaging the grass. If the grass is growing out just a little bit, you don't want to engage it. It will mess you up. Notice how our vector line is not perfectly parallel to the board. We're actually having to shift it over just a little bit, make sure we catch that grass. And then we popped right out into the neutral position, but the shaft is always parallel to the board. And therefore we know it's ready to be engaged, and also we know where that spike tip is constantly. So focus on keeping your spike low as well, and the spike tip behind you and parallel to the board. There's the skateboard spike being tossed as we switch, and there we engage back up into the silicone. And all of these movements have to be forethought, and they have to become automatic, very similar to swimming backstroke and coming into a flip turn, and coming out in breaststroke or coming out in butterfly, swimming IMs. Imagine being an IM, individual medley swimmer. You have to navigate 4 strokes throughout your event, and that will need to change in your mind. So it's funny, sometimes people comment about spikeboarding, about its challenge, or it's about, you know, its transition zone. And meanwhile, swimming has 4 deliriously different strokes, and they're all raced at the same exact time. And people have been doing that for over 40 years' time without any problems whatsoever. Need we remind you of the transitions and the gear changes that happen between V1 and V2 and V1 alternate and kick double pull and double pull. Those are all of the transitions that are done in skiing. And of course, all the transitions happen constantly, and the terrain is going to dictate how that happens. So in spikeboarding, we have the same situation, a little less complicated than cross-country skiing, and possibly maybe a little more complicated than swimming. But swimming is incredibly complicated human kinetics that's happening, and if you focus closely on how it's achieved from a social design standpoint, it's achieved by teaching very young children how to swim. If you go to swim teams in this country or any place in the world, you're going to discover very good swimmers have been doing it below age 10. If you don't get kids swimming before age 10, they're going to speak that physical literacy with what might be considered an accent. So if you learn a language above age 10, 11, 12, you know, you'll be hampered with a challenge to get past having an accent. And of course, the same is with physical movement. But as you can see here, we're keeping our nose over our knee and our knee over our toes, and we're gliding. And we're skating. We're purely skating. And just switch kicking, guys, is such an incredible physical literacy language to learn. We've been riding a skateboard since age 6, and we wish that would have been the very first thing that we were ever taught, or that we had taught ourselves, which was to switch kick, because the skateboard becomes unviable as a form of transportation for over longer distances of 2 to 8 miles when we are kicking with one leg and we become adults. So move to a place that's urban and kick a skateboard with one leg beyond age 30, and you will discover that things will become a little bit tedious. Might you do it? Sure. In Manhattan, for instance, from 14th Street to Columbia University is about 7 miles. So are you really going to kick one-legged for 7 miles? Are you going to kick from 29th and Stewart Street in Denver? What we're doing there is just drying off the tire a little bit. We went through a little bit of a puddle. We're trying to make it so the rear wheel isn't spitting up a bunch of water onto our camera lens. But folks, it's just not tenable. So you're not going to kick single-legged very long as an adult. You're going to jump on a bicycle, and that's lovely. Or you're going to jump in a cart. That's not so lovely. So the idea is to make the planet proud and use a car and energy transport sparingly. And what's not so lovely about getting on a bicycle is that your body will not be receiving balance practice. So that really gets us to, aren't some of these murals lovely? They're absolutely lovely. Thank you so much, Denver master planners, community leaders, for subsidizing these artists and keeping art where it should be. We must have art. We must have lovely design around us. It is a big payback to have it. So Denver, you're on the right track. And we're skating, folks. That's what we're showing. Keep your knee over your nose. Keep your shoulder down and your nose over your toes. So nose over knee, knee over toe, and you are skating. So you want to glide over your center line. That is what skating is all about. Getting back to, I know we need to get back to soccer, and I will do that before the end of this video, I promise. But getting back to the differences between cycling and skating. Of course, skating now has become on a board skiing, is that you're going to practice your balance. So fitness is strength, endurance plus balance. How many people will giggle when you tell them, hey, have you ever thought of practicing a balance related sport, whether that's figure skating or hockey or even street skateboarding or cross country skiing, anything like that? Most adults, they will just giggle and say, I don't have balance. I just don't have balance. I've got no balance. I could never do that. And that's a ridiculous notion. That's like saying that you'd never be able to learn a foreign language, or you wouldn't ever be able to learn anything at all for that matter. Whatever it is you have desire to do, you can learn it. Your brain can adapt to it, and your body can certainly adapt to it. If I was to tell anybody, hey, you don't have enough strength to walk upstairs, if your doctor told you that, you'd fall flat. You'd be so depressed that day. You'd call your friends. You'd say, my goodness, you'll never believe the news I've been given. I don't have enough strength to walk upstairs. It would floor you. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you sat in a bed and you never did anything and you just remained still in a wheelchair and you could walk but you didn't walk, well, it would be very challenging to walk upstairs because you would never have practiced your strength. Exactly. So if we practice a little balance, then we'll have balance. Certainly, cycling is the queen of all transport sports. We need cycling like mad. Spikeboarding engages with cycling in a sport called velo-spiking. So we'll have a link below this and you can check out velo-spiking because Denver's an amazing place to velo-spike. It's a really big town and oftentimes you might not want to switch kick 7, 8, 9, 10 mile distances, and you might not want to switch kick on Cherry Creek. So just grab a bike, connect your board and your spike, cycle to where you're going, and spike the zone. So we very often go from Sloan's Lake to Washington Park and places beyond velo-spiking. We arrive with a bicycle and our spikeboarding gear, spikeboard to our heart's delight, and then cycle home. So all the transport sports are incredibly worthy. Please don't watch these videos and become a spikeboarder. In no sense, shape, or form ever become a spikeboarder. Don't become a cyclist. Please become people who are literate in physical literacy that recreates and transports. Happen to be a person who knows how to speak spikeboarding language. Happen to be a person who knows how to speak performance cycling. And you will enjoy yourself over the duration of your life much more with all of these sports. So when you begin to multi-sport, your body will enjoy it, you will enjoy it, and if you begin to practice inline skating, switch kicking a board, even switch kicking a scooter, where all this really begins, switch kicking, you're going to have a little more elevated sense of balance. So same as you would eat a balanced diet, you need to have a balanced sense of movement. And of course, cross-country skiing and spikeboarding are some of the most comprehensive forms of engaging your body with strength, endurance, and balance. There's the stand-up spike stroke into the grass, and it's going to give your legs quite a bit of reprieve. And also, of course, look at the engagement of the core. It's absolutely constant, and also the lat is constantly being engaged. I may as well be double poling right there. It would be the same. Now, double poling is going to be a little more efficient, and that, of course, is why double poling was born, because it was more efficient than a single shaft. Skiing, folks, happened with one shaft for thousands and thousands of years. Thousands of years. One shaft, two skis. People have never skied on one ski. They haven't cross-country skied on one ski. It wouldn't ever make sense. Of course they've skied on one ski, and they've alpine skied on one ski. It's called a snowboard. So snowboarding is skiing. You're dropping down the fall line of the mountain with steel edges and a wide ski board. And of course, in effect, what is a skateboard? A skateboard is a board with wheels. So if we look at it that way, then what are roller skis? They are boards with wheels. And of course, the essence of roller skiing and cross-country skiing is preparing yourself to go up hills and across flats, mostly to go up hills. That's really, really, really what you want to do. So here we are toward the end of where we need to go. We're near the Washington Park area, getting closer and closer. We're going to pull a little U-turn here, across the street, and keep heading towards Denver University. Check out those folks, see if we run into some cross-country skiers, and say hi. And as you can see, the U-turn is casual. The engagement of the kinetics on a sidewalk with tremendously busy traffic is casual. It's a heck of a lot more casual than roller ski. This is something that we wouldn't want to be doing on roller skis at all. It certainly could be possible, but it just wouldn't be so enjoyable. It is very nice to be able to engage your ski poles when you're roller skiing. And if you can't, then you have some challenges on staying upright. And of course, remember, your heels are not bound into roller skis, only your toes are. So the casualness that you see here is not afforded those on roller skis. We're going to jump off curbs, we're going to skip over expansion joints, we're going to go just about absolutely any place that we want very casually without having to engage our skateboard spike. And if we want to, bang, there you go. So that was Cherry Creek, guys. We hope you enjoyed that. We're going to do a little more spiking here towards the DU area and the Washington Park area. We've made a video on Washington Park, so make sure you check that out. And now let's get back to the soccer and researchers, and hopefully, as we said before, we really believe that switch kicking unstructured for kids 7 and up, maybe even younger, and then playing structured soccer above ages 10. We know that the incidence of double-footedness has got to rise. So have you been able to tell what the dominant support leg of this athlete is? You may not have even thought of it. You might not even thought, oh, he looks kind of shaky on one leg or another. So the big bucks get paid to the double footers in soccer, and we sincerely believe that constant engagement of ambipedal skill set is going to help. And of course, at the same time, you're getting a tremendous amount of cross training, stamina, full body strength and conditioning functionally, and also a tremendous amount of core. So all coaches know your legs and your arms connected to your core. Anything that is going to function and fire at more productive levels is going to occur out of a very strong core. And skiing, cross-country skiing, which you're looking at the last innovation of cross-country skiing, is going to help. It's cross-country skiing, but it also has the delivery of a high degree of ambipedal skill set, and that has never happened before. Also with something so casual and so delightfully fun. So now let's just speak a little bit about the clothing. The clothing, of course, is technical, very similar and exactly to inline skaters. So when you look at inline skaters, they all wear technical clothes that are tight-fitting, so they're not catching the air, they're not parachutes. And of course, in spikeboarding, you don't want to catch your skateboard spike down by your quad. Folks, we hope you've enjoyed this. Spike hard, spike often. Spikeboarding, Denver.